Hello, and welcome to another episode of AP Taylor Swift. Today, we are going to be doing a deep dive episode, which means we are diving into the depths of a very particular song. The song that we chose this week is called I Know Places. It's a continuation of a discussion that we were having last week, where our theme was animal studies. Jody brought I Know Places to talk about foxes and vultures, and there's so much that we can discuss, and we're gonna dive into that a little bit today. Before we do, just wanted to make a quick call out. If you don't already subscribe to our Substack, we often go down nerdy rabbit holes and do some extra credit to explore interesting concepts there. And last week's episode, definitely, we took a few different exciting paths.
We got nerdy.
So I highly recommend subscribing to the Substack to do some further reading to enrich your nerdy mind. Cool. So with that, who wants to kick it off with this week's discussion? Jen, do you want to ground us in the rhetorical triangle?
Yeah. As always, we talk about who is the speaker, who are they speaking to, and what is the purpose of the text. And we will end with trying to decide, well, just sharing what we all think the purpose is. I will say with I Know Places, as a reminder, we don't particularly care about what was happening in Taylor's life as she wrote this, and it is very much a narrative in and of itself. So that'll be the majority of the conversation. Cultural context can matter, like this creates relevance to certain things, but I know this is a song that there's a lot of theories about, and we will be doing our literary analysis.
Yeah, you're on the wrong podcast if you want us to be like, so here's the person and what's happening. Like, I do like to bring in some of the context about some of the imagery. I think that's helpful, but you're right, Jen, in terms of like the specifics of her relationships.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Because the song is now out and in the world, and I think we all relate to it for our own reasons. We don't want to limit the power of these songs to the very specific situation she was thinking or feeling when she wrote it. So we will expand it. As always, first person song. That's pretty much
well, not only is it first person, the first line is like literally right out of the gate, grounding herself.
Lots of eyes.
Lots of eyes.
But then it goes to you.
Well, I want to talk about the eyes for a second, because ever since you brought up the my in
Death by a Thousand Cuts,
I'm like, what does this mean? Why did she use eyes as a onomatopoeia?
It's stuttering. Yeah, it's a stuttering. There's something there. I also think what's interesting in this song is it starts as a recording. Like, you hear the click of like a recording device and a tape going, which is very old school, but this is from 1989, so it is very 80s to hear this recording. And so there's something there to the eyes. Like, I don't know if it's like a skipping of a recording device.
Ooh, yeah, and I like the stuttering.
Like this, yeah.
Well, I like that interpretation too. What I was thinking is we move on to just the next couple lines. You stand with your hand on my waistline. It's a scene and we're out here in plain sight. I can hear them whisper as we pass by. It also makes me think of kind of those moments of someone like asks you a question and you don't quite know the answer, or you don't really know how to handle it. That kind of stuttering of like, I, and then the rest of the song is like, and then we ran away. So it kind of, it also evokes for me a sense of a like, I don't know what to do.
Like, I'm caught.
Just and then just piecing out.
Caught off guard. Yeah.
I'm imagining in the movies where they have this scene where like a person is there and like there's all these camera lights flashing and they're just like, I can't.
Yeah, you kind of like get them out. You look both ways. You're like, oh shit, and you run. We run. Anyway, sorry. We'll get there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole feeling of the song. Again, she does this. The lyrics help evoke the feeling of the song. So you start with the eyes, and it gets very quickly into. She's saying it's a scene, but she's also painting the scene. You get the physicality. She's the show, don't tell. You stand with your hand on my waistline. We're in plain sight. I can hear. You get all of the senses: touch, sight, sound, which I find really interesting in how she builds that scene by giving you the sensory experience.
Yeah, she sets up a very kind of literal feeling scene of there's two people, it's I and you, and we are in plain sight and people are whispering. And then she says it's a bad sign. And then we immediately go symbolic, which sign is interesting there for that pivot of something happens when everybody finds out. See the vultures circling dark clouds. And then again, more imagery, loves a fragile little flame. It could burn out. So we have this literal thing, and then we immediately go into like, okay, but symbolically, what does this feel like is happening to us?
I go back to, I believe it was our metaphors episode. It was either metaphors or it was fall, and we were talking about red. Because red is literally a whole bunch of metaphors.
Fall. That was our fall episode.
That was our fall episode. Where if she had written a song about the exact situation she is in, it might not be nearly as relatable as using metaphors and symbolism, because we cannot relate necessarily directly to Taylor and her celebrity lifestyle, but we can relate to a feeling, and she paints that picture and she creates that feeling with the imagery and with the metaphors that she provides in these songs.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit in the last episode, but this idea of the dark clouds and the vultures circling really is an interesting choice, because my initial thought was always like, oh, they feel like prey, like they're being circled, but like it's a little bit more dire than that, because vultures only circle when there's death. And so it's either like you are about to die, like you have a feeling of you're about to die,
Right.
or you feel like you're already dead, which is a little bit more extreme than just like being hunted.
And vulture circling is a bad omen.
And then
portentous omen for something to come.
Yeah.
It goes into loves a fragile little flame. It could burn out, which is again a death image. For a flame to burn out, that flame is no longer alive.
Yeah.
So those images together make me feel like it's on the precipice of death. Yeah. Whatever the situation is.
And the metaphor continues, because they got the cages, boxes, and guns is the next line. And then we get to the main line of they are the hunted, we are the foxes, and we run, right before we kick into the chorus.
So you have this sense immediately in the first two, I guess that's one verse. It's the verse in the pre-chorus. I need to take a music theory class. Anyway, you get immediately this sense of dark, like portentous, fear, scared. But the chorus is about trying to get away from all of that. Baby, I know places we won't be found.
I want to pause on the cages and boxes for a second too before we move on, because that's so interesting to me when you think about, even at this point, it's the next line where we get into foxes. So like, yes, putting animals in cages is very sad, and it's not something you want to do, but then we know that that's a metaphor though. But the idea of putting a person in a cage or putting a person in a box usually isn't literal, but it's more of a, we've decided this is how you're supposed to act, so we're going to put you in this box. We have decided for you what this is supposed to be,
and then execute you for it with the guns. Like, I think it's like we're putting you in boxes, but then we have guns ready. Like the hunting act ends in execution.
Well, it kind of reminds me of I Did Something Bad, because we have this like burning all the witches, even if you aren't one, but they have their receipts and reasons, where it doesn't really matter what you do.
Right. And you go back to reasons, like hunting foxes is for sport. It's not even like you're hunting for food, which is for sustenance. Hunting foxes is purely for sport and for the fun of the hunt, which is really vicious.
Yeah. So for such an ominous start, to your point, Jody, like the switch to the chorus it's like, and it's also
pretty drastic. It's drastic, and it's the word I want to use to describe the way she sings this line, baby. It's even just the word baby. Bay. Like it's a little ethereal. Like it's a little romantic. Even saying baby brings the romance into it in this situation that's like very not romantic. But like, I know places we won't be found. Like if you took that line outside of the context of the whole song, you'd be like, oh, they want to like be alone and be high. Like it could be romantic, except it's not. It's literally, they'll be chasing their trails, trying to track us down. Like you're trying to hide from being hunted. It's not, I know places we won't be found because we're going to just enjoy being alone. It's to save your life.
And we didn't really talk about this in the last episode, but we mentioned chasing their tails, but that to me is like, suddenly you've gone from like vultures and really ominous hunters to like dogs. Chasing their tails to track us down to me is like hunting dogs.
Well, don't they use hunting dogs? Yeah, they use hunting dogs to
find
chase
wolves. Yeah, the hounds.
Yeah.
And so now you have this like, but like dogs with tails between their legs is like a very different kind of image.
When a dog chases her tail, it's really funny.
Yes. Yeah, it's very humorous. It's like, you silly goose.
But also it's an idiom, right? You know what that means when someone's chasing their tail. It means they can't get it. They can't catch it.
But it's just interesting because the first few lines were like so dark and ominous, and then all of a sudden she like with a snap of her finger with the baby and I know places not to be found, she turns that into something that's almost like innocuous and like almost comical.
Yeah, it feels very we can outsmart them.
Yeah.
Like there's all of these ominous signs, but we're smarter than that.
And foxes are clever.
Yes.
So you have the choruses, which get much lighter and ethereal musically, and also lyrically. That is where they are no longer prey, but they are ahead of the game. They are clever, they're smart, and then it goes back. And music, and again, we need someone who knows music to help us out here. Lights flash, like you get the staccato. I know that word, staccato. Like the verses are very staccato. You stand with your hand on my waistline is the first verse, and then after this chorus, lights flash and we'll run for the fences. So you get this back to the like anxiety and tension and fear.
Loose lips sink ships all the damn time.
I wrote
Such a
down
good
3
line.
idioms: in plain sight, chasing their tails, and then loose lips sink ships. That's my literary English class hat of the day.
I think
Want to put me to shame, Jen? Go ahead.
No, I was also going to bring up the word ship, so you go first, Monzi.
I was like, ships, I think we have come to mean like, yes, literal ships, but also relationships.
Yes.
It means the same thing. So sink ships, we're talking about a flame that burns out. We're talking about a relationship.
Not this time.
And I think it's interesting too, the loose lips sink ships. I was going to say
It's a
that too.
hard
It's also
line to say. How does she sing that? I would trip over it every time.
But ships are definitely relationships, but also this idea, if you think about, I don't know, it's really interesting to me. I sort of get this almost like mutiny feeling too of loose lips sink ships, of like if you're on an actual ship, if there's discord, if people are talking and creating problems that aren't there, that it can, like, for a ship, like if we think my mind is at Pirates of the Caribbean right now. I'm just gonna tell you that's exactly where my brain is.
Thank you.
But like if you aren't working together, that like is a pretty dangerous situation to be in. To be in the middle of the ocean and to have their disagreement, to have infighting is like not a safe space to be, and that can result in a sunken ship. So that's interesting to me too, that it's also this idea of, yes, keeping secrets, but also like, I don't know, like I think there's some implications here in this line where you can get into like trust. And I think that's like a key part of this too, of like, if we're not safe, who do we trust? I think is like an interesting question here.
Yeah, and the other side of keeping secrets is also like gossip. Especially when you're talking about celebrity eyes or like being in the plain sight.
Public space.
Yeah, public space. So loose lips is like, there's like gossip that can sink relationships. But yeah, I like that fact that the meaning holds for both. For both versions of this line, like literally on ships, it will also sink ships if people are not buttoned up, but figuratively also gossip can hurt, or like revealing secrets can hurt a relationship.
And it doesn't even have to be famous people. This is going to be one of my pop culture references here is, I think of Friends, when Monica and Chandler start dating, they want to keep it a secret because they're just kind of figuring it out, and it like could really impact their friends. So there are some times where people, not famous people, have valid reasons for some relationship to be not public to everyone else. And so who do you trust with that as you're figuring things out?
This
like
very much
it's relatable.
Feels like the beginning of a relationship. And I think that's the case for many beginnings of a relationship. You want it to be yours. You don't want the opinions of others to...
Do you maybe want the lavender haze?
You do want the lavender haze. You want to sit in the lavender haze, get it off your chest, get it off my desk. But yeah, this feels like the beginning of a relationship where you just want it to be yours, and you just want to block the lavender haze, block out everything else, and you don't have to be a celebrity to want that honeymoon phase without anybody else's opinions.
And then it moves on to just grab my hand and don't ever drop it. My love, they are the hunters. Again, we are the foxes, and we run.
Really romantic, weirdly sweet, like interesting transition from the anxiety to this like very sweet, like my
which
love.
Reminds me a lot.
Yeah, the way my love is sung is very
my love.
beautiful,
That's not how she sounds it.
relaxing.
Mine wasn't beautiful or relaxing. It was very sarcastic. But again, this song reminds me a lot of Wonderland. Flashing lights, lights flash, and we run for
Yeah.
the fences, your eyes so green. And I also think lyrically and musically in Wonderland, we have a similar thing where she is talking about this falling in love and falling in this relationship, but then also realizing it's negative. So you have the duality there of wanting to sit in the love and the lightness of a relationship, but also realizing the darkness and the anxiety. In that song, I think the anxiety and the darkness comes from the person she's in the relationship with. In this song, it feels like the anxiety comes from the outside and from people who are trying to learn more about it or even interfere with it. But I think that again, that just speaks to relationships in general. It's never just one feeling that you're feeling. As much as you might want to sit in the joy in the lavender haze, there's other things going on in the world that will cause it to be a multifaceted situation.
Just looking at this song as a whole, I'm really seeing like the two parts to it. There's the anxiety of the being hunted part, which it does feel like both of them are feeling. Like even the speaker, as much as the speaker, which in the second part, the speaker is like, I know places and I know an escape and I can get us out of here, as kind of like the resolution. But even though the speaker is the one that is saying all those things, the speaker clearly still feels very intensely that first part. So it's interesting to me that the speaker has the solution and the speaker knows places, but the speaker also knows the feeling, because to me it's like, well, why would you feel this hunting feeling so intensely if you've always had this mechanism to just be able to get away and hide? Maybe I could understand that for the second person, the person that's needing the saving, if that anxiety was like that person's perspective. But it's just so interesting to me that the first person can feel both and know both. It almost makes me want to distrust the speaker. Like, it's like, you know spaces, but do you really?
So that's what I was just going to say. It's an interesting angle that I hadn't really thought of before, that she's kind of like reassuring, like, don't worry, I know a place we can hide and get away from this.
Yeah.
And she's trying to like calm someone down from their anxiety about the whole thing.
Or is in denial about it, or like there's like a moment where maybe like they just like switch off and like turn off reality and they're like, this is a game, we can run away. Like it almost, the switch is so drastic that it makes me like just question the speaker a little bit. And I'm like, do we have like an unreliable speaker?
I love an unreliable narrator.
I love it too, from the just grab my hand and don't ever drop it. The speaker's taking the lead, both like, oh, I know places, but is also like literally like, the speaker never says the place. The speaker just says, I know places, take my hand, I'll take you there.
Lips sink ships if she says the place.
But there's, I think that thinking of this as an unreliable narrator, then there's sort of the question of, do you know places? Like you're saying you're saying let's go, but
the whole title of the song, if she doesn't know places,
because
ironic.
I was thinking about the end of like, we have the very last section, which is interesting and we should get into, but other than that, it just kind of is repeating for a little bit in the middle of like, yes, we're being hunted, I know places, no, I know places.
There a bridge?
And it's like,
the rabbit. Wait, no, but before we get to the bridge, it feels like a rabbit. It feels like a rabbit scram. Like, sorry, is this my Zootopia reference? But it's like a scared little frantic rabbit.
Yeah.
Where it's like almost delusional. Like, I know places. I'm going to get us out of this. I got the solution. I got it. I
go back to the previous episode where I said this should be, they are the hunters, we are the bunnies, and we hop. Because that's how it feels. It doesn't feel, feels like she wants to be a fox in this situation. The speaker wants to be cunning and know ways to get out of it. But really, you're a rabbit, and there's just like nothing you can do except run into a hole, and the hunters know where the hole is.
Do you ever like, I don't know if all of us are siblings, but do you ever have this moment where you're like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm going to get us out of this. Don't worry. Like, we get into like a mess or we're going through a bad time or something, and you just feel this responsibility. You're like, I'll get us out. Like, don't worry. I got this. I know a way. I'll do it. You don't don't know what you're doing. You're like, I have no idea.
I don't feel that way with my sibling. I feel that way at work all the time.
Sure.
I'm like, yeah, I got this. Yeah, we'll figure this out. And I'm like, I don't actually got this, but I guess I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
I like the sibling joke because it feels like don't tell mom.
Yeah,
it's fine.
like, well,
don't call her.
Well, it's just like, I'll get us out of this mess, okay? Like, everybody else in this family is useless. Like, I'll do it. But
Monty, are you the older sibling then?
I am the older sibling.
Yeah, that's a true older sibling feeling. Yes.
But to me, it's giving new meaning to that I stuttering in the beginning and the end too. Because it's like a little bit of like, you're put in the spotlight, you're in a tight place, you're actually freaking scared too. Like, you know the feeling, it's very ominous. You're also terrified, but you also feel this pressure to be like, I will take care of it. Don't worry. And you're putting on this almost like you're switching to this lighthearted mode to be
which
like,
is the chorus.
Yeah, which is the chorus, which is like, I can get us out of this.
Will be okay.
I know places will be okay. And then you're like trying to get there.
Well, musically too, the sound of the recorder like turning on and off is at the beginning and the end. So the song is I can hide, I know places, but then we end with the implication of, okay, great, this whole thing was recorded. Awesome.
Great. Which is why she never says what the place is.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it just kind of, to me, that recording sound is I know places we can hide, but then this whole thing was recorded. So really there is no place to hide. Everything's always recorded, which yes, famous, true, but also just feels relatable to everyone right now where it's like, what is privacy? I don't know anymore.
Don't write anything in the internet that you don't want to keep forever.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of ominous. It's like they may have gotten hunted in the end, like, because it was caught on tape. Like, it was, this whole struggle has been caught on tape.
Which brings me to, I don't know that there is a bridge. I can't find it. And I think that could be purposeful because a bridge takes you somewhere.
It's a resolution.
It's a resolution. It connects you to the resolution. There isn't really a resolution here. Unless the last section is a bridge. They take their shots. We're bulletproof. I know places.
Do we want to take a break before we get into the last section then?
Fine.
Okay. We'll be right back and we'll get into the last section.
Okay, we're back because I can't wait.
Well, I love this section. It's maybe my favorite part of the song.
It may be the bridge. If it is, it's a bridge to nowhere, which is very fitting for this song. I know places where we don't actually think she does know a place.
Oh, I love that idea of the bridges at the very end.
Which means is I feel like musically, a bridge connects two things.
Right.
If a bridge is at the end, it's a bridge to nowhere. It's not really a bridge.
Yeah.
But
it's a dead end.
Take you back to the eyes.
We talk about how the bridge usually is where we pivot, where it's suddenly like the point of view changes, or there's suddenly a new action, or they're moving on, or something.
But here, there's nothing to change too.
They're still running.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Or they're running off a cliff, or if it's a cliff, or it's like a dead end.
It's a what are they?
Drawbridge.
Thelma and Louise
off
ending.
A bridge. So songs apparently don't need to have a bridge. You can choose whatever song structure you want.
But Taylor Swift.
So I like she loves a good bridge, which is why I kind of like the idea that if she was to have a bridge in this particular song, it'd be a bridge at the end. It's a bridge to nowhere because there's no place to hide. Or she wouldn't let us see where she's hiding. God, we just take this so far.
But it's also just, I just love these. I'm just going to read them really fast because I think they're beautiful. They take their shots, but we're bulletproof. I know places. And you know, for me, it's always you. I know places. In the dead of night, your eyes so green. I know places. And I know for you, it's always me. I know places.
They're dying.
But I think what is really interesting. Oh my God, Monzi, why is every song about death for you?
No, that just sounds like a final. I'm thinking about movies cinematically. I'm like, this is
the
end.
This is your Thelma and Louise moment.
Or like,
if we count Enchanted, I want you to go through and count the number of times Monzi's like, hear me out. I think they're going to die.
Okay, but should I get like really, really, really morbid? We can cut this out.
Thanks for the trigger warning. No, yes, go ahead.
Trigger warning. Like the moment between, like right before Anne Frank's family is discovered in the annex, when they're all sitting there. You get like,
I know what you mean.
Like, the imagery to me is like, they're like sitting there just like, it's like, I know in the dead of the night, eyes so green. Yeah, like it's you, for you, it's, it's always me.
Real dark.
Yeah. But it's that moment of like, I don't know, like of quiet love of like, we know it's hopeless.
Like, yeah, it's hopeless. Like for you, it's always me. For me, it's always you, whatever. Like, it's like, you know, we got this. It's just you and me. And it's like that moment right before.
Real heavy.
Well, we did, but
Thanks for the trigger warning.
I can totally see it in this light because I've always loved that it ends. I know for you, it's always me.
Yeah.
Because one, that's super romantic, but I do always feel like it's sort of a reassuring of like, hey, like I know it's that for you, it's me. Like I don't question that. Don't worry about that. Like I know places, which feels arguable if she actually knows places because we don't get names of places or we don't see much progress made towards those places to hide, but these are very concrete. Like I know for you it's always me, and I know you know for me it's always you. Like these are
that's
firm,
the only reassuring thing about the whole song.
Yeah,
that they
very
have each other no matter
statements.
what. Like even saying like we're bulletproof, like I don't really trust that. You go back to like the reliable narrator, but like I mean, can trust for you it's me, for me it's you.
For me, like
the
we're we're bulletproof means like one of those things of like, it's like the thing that you say right before the bullets actually come. It's like we're gonna, like, we're bigger than this. Like this is we're gonna outlive this even when you know you're not, you know. It's like, it's almost like that kind of a thing. But yeah, I am really like thinking about a lot of like cinematic moments where it's like you have two main characters who are like at the end of their string, and it's like it's like that moment where you're like, you've been caught and you know you're about to get executed, and then you're like in that which takes us back to the beginning. Like the way it ends with I, the same place that it started, and like that first stanza was so dark. It was really like this is the vultures circling, this is the dark clouds, this is like the flame about to go out. It really kind of feels like you've just been transported in the time of this recording to like back to the beginning
where it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
The cinematic thing it reminds me of is Rogue One, which is a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
It's actually my favorite Star Wars movie.
Which nerd theme from the previous episode
for this. I love that movie. It does not have a happy ending, which is what I think part of what I love about it. But there's a moment where the two main characters, they don't even like have. I mean, they have very great chemistry, but it's never like a relationship. But they know they're literally about to die, and they just sit on a beautiful beach and just hug each other and wait for it to come because there's nothing they can do. Like talk about vultures circling, like there's nothing they can do.
To me, it's Aida. Did you ever see the musical Aida?
I've not seen it. I've listened to the soundtrack
4 times. That's good, but it was amazing. It was my favorite. I saw it 4 times on Broadway as a kid. At the end, spoiler alert, they're buried together. Ron and Maze and Aida are buried together, and that's all they do have is themselves, is each other.
I have not seen it.
Despite that morbid ending, it's also a opera. Giuseppe. And anyway, I like the musical.
That's what I'm getting. So do we feel ready to?
I know. I'm still thinking.
The song is morbid.
Yeah.
The song
not
is
not a happy song.
Not a happy song. I think the purpose is like a leave us alone. And if they won't leave us alone, at least we have each other. But like the whole feeling and vibe of the song is like, get out of my face, leave me alone. But really what it's saying is I've got us. It's kind of like an I've got this for us. It's not even like we've got each other. It's right? It's I know places. It's I'm going to save us. Even if like I don't really believe it.
Yeah, it's the like that moment of confidence where you're like, if I believe enough, maybe I'll figure my way out of this. But we just gotta go.
The audacity of hope. That's what this song is. This song is the audacity of hope. Yes, I did just bring an Obama reference.
Yeah, go ahead,
Jen. For me, okay. I think for me, I hadn't really thought about it until this conversation, but going back to the line that we were talking about at the beginning, because they got the cages, they got the boxes. I think that is thinking about that where the song becomes more widely relatable because it is about, running away from prying eyes. But I also think there's like a certain point in a lot of relationships where you kind of have to decide what your relationship is going to be. You kind of grow up with a lot of ideas that this is what it's supposed to be. And then you and your partner have to decide for yourselves, what do you want? We've talked about this in many different ways on the podcast, but like there's a very traditional path of the American dream of get married, have kids, work, retire, Like there's kind of that. And that's where this is kind of relatable to me, is kind of this partnership with someone else and saying like, let's run away from that. Let's run away from these cages. Let's run away from these boxes. And is it futile? I don't know. I go back to our Marxist episode and talk about like how society kind of dictates a lot of things for you. So how much freedom do we really have is a question we can ask. And, what are our options? Our options here are different than they would be if we were born in different countries or in different times. So we are always limited by our surroundings, but we're also limited by the people around us. Are people going to support you if you make a different decision? Are they going to try to put you into boxes? Loose lips sink ships all the damn time. Are people going to gossip about you? Are they going to support you? I think that's where it can kind of get relatable, where there's the Lavender Haze too, where there's these moments in your relationship where you sometimes are just like, screw everyone. Can we just run away and just like be ourselves and live the lives we want to live? Because like expectations are a thing that exists and you have to deal with, and that's just reality.
Which that brings me to a connection that I wrote down but didn't make, which is the other song where we have hunters is in the lakes, hunters with cell phones. And that's another example of a song about trying to like get away from it all and just be with your love. I like that idea.
And I think if that's the question that the song is asking, like to me the ending is like, no, you can't get away.
Nope.
But I think that the fact that it's asking that question is a really nice interpretation. I definitely didn't necessarily extrapolate it to that like real life application, but I really like your theory, Jen. But definitely to me, I'm like, this is not a happy song. And it's one of those, I do think like the I, something about the recording, like the stuttering to me is like, this is a glimpse into a moment where like, I think one person is like, I think I can save us. And you're trying to remain optimistic in a very dire situation where there's not really any optimism. And so it's almost like trying to make belief or make light of a situation that is otherwise really devastating. And I just not a happy ending. Now I'm sad.
Nope. I know. This one got dark.
I should have gone last.
This one
Mine
got dark.
was mildly more happy.
Yours was optimistic. We can escape
what
the
did we
American
expect
dream
about a song with foxes and vultures and hunters?
I think the ending is always what gets me for it, of like, in the face of everything else, like maybe we can't always win, but you can at least have someone who you both know we love each other. Like that's something we can have, even if we're going to be forced into these roles, even if like we talk about it all the time, of like my husband and I talk about it all the time, of like, are these the jobs that we have, the jobs we want? I don't know. They're fine. But like, we live in a world where we have to make money and we have to survive. And like, that's just what it is. And is this like, if we had all the options, is this exactly what we would choose? I don't know. Probably not. But like, we at least have each other and we can at least like be together as we're navigating what existing in this world looks like for us. So that's a more optimistic ending.
Thank you for ending this on an optimistic note. We needed that.
Yeah. And I was hugging my cat really, really tightly.
That
too. Yeah. That's important.
Well, that is a wrap on I Know Places. Join us next time as we pick another song.